In April 2019, a reviewer unboxed Samsung's brand new folding phone. 2 days later, the $1,980 screen was dead. Same story across newsrooms. The future of phones self-destructed in reviewers' hands within 48 hours. This was supposed to be the comeback. Just 2 years earlier, Samsung's Note 7 batteries caught fire and got banned from planes. The Fold was the redemption story, and the whole idea of folding screens rode on it. A second flagship blowing up in public could bury the category before it launched. So why did it die so fast? The real reason isn't the reviewers. Start with the screen because it's the heart of the whole problem. A normal phone screen sits under hard glass. Glass is tough, but glass does not bend. Snap it in half and it shatters. A folding phone can't use it. So Samsung built the display out of thin, flexible plastic instead. Picture a sheet you could roll like paper. That plastic panel is what lets the phone close in half and open flat again, thousands of times. Here's the trade-off. To bend, the top surface has to be soft. Soft means scratchable. Soft means a fingernail, a set of keys, or a bit of grit can dent it. On your regular phone, the glass is the bodyguard for everything underneath. On the Fold, that bodyguard is gone. The most delicate layer in the entire device is sitting right on top, exposed where your thumb lands. Samsung knew this. That's why the panel was capped with a factory-applied plastic film, a protective skin bonded straight onto the display. Not a peel-off sticker for shipping, a permanent part of the screen. And that single design fact, soft plastic on top instead of hard glass, is the root of everything that went wrong next. 2 different failures, one shared cause. But if the film was there to protect the screen, how did the screen still die in 2 days? That answer starts with a very human mistake. Here's failure number 1, and it happened almost everywhere at once. Reviewers at CNBC, The Verge, and Bloomberg all got early units. Each one looked at that top film and thought the same thing. This is the plastic wrap that comes on every new gadget. So they peeled it off. Reasonable move. On any other phone, that film is trash you throw away in the first minute. But on the Fold, that film was not packaging. It was a structural, load-bearing layer bonded to the flexible display. Part of the screen doing a real job, holding the surface together as it flexed. Rip it off and you're tearing a piece of the display itself. Within a day, those screens went haywire. Bulges, black patches, flickering, dead. And here's the part Samsung owned. The phone did not clearly tell anyone to leave that film alone. No bold warnings. No lock screen alerts. No red sticker. Just a fragile, expensive device handed to experienced reviewers with a booby trap they had no way to see. Think about that. The people who unbox phones for a living, who have peeled 1,000 screen protectors, all made the identical mistake. Because the design invited it. That's not clumsy. That's a communication failure baked into the product. But peeling explains the phones people touched. It doesn't explain the ones nobody touched at all. Some screens died with the film completely intact. Now the failure Samsung couldn't blame on anyone. When the Fold closes, the two halves meet at a hinge in the middle. On these early units, that hinge left a gap. A small open seam where the folding mechanism sat exposed at each end. The screen wasn't sealed shut like the tight, waterproof body of a normal phone. It had openings, and openings let things in. Slide the phone into a pocket, set it on a table, carry it through a normal day, and tiny particles find that gap. Pocket lint grit a crumb of dust. Once a particle works its way under the display through that seam, it has nowhere to go. It sits beneath the soft plastic panel and pushes up from below. Remember, the top layer is soft plastic, not stiff glass. It has no strength to resist a point pressing into it from underneath. So the panel bulges. Right at that bulge, the tiny circuits that light each pixel get stretched and crushed, and pixels die in a growing blotch. Break time equals 0. 6 is slash. This is the failure that mattered most because it needed no mistake at all. Nobody peeled anything. A single speck of dust, migrating through a gap the design left open, could kill a $1,980 screen. That's not user error. That's a hole in the engineering. 2 failure modes now from the same soft plastic root. Which raises the obvious question, what did Samsung actually do about it? Here's where Samsung made the call that probably saved the phone. The Fold was supposed to go on sale April 26, 2019. After only a handful of these failures went public, not thousands of angry customers, just a few reviewers, Samsung indefinitely postponed the launch and recalled every review unit. They pulled the plug on their own flagship days before payday. Then they fixed both holes. For the peeled film problem, extend that protective layer outward, past the raised edge of the screen, so it tucks under the bezel and physically can't be grabbed and pulled off. If you can't get a fingernail under it, you can't peel it by mistake. For the dust problem, add small caps at the top and bottom of the hinge and tighten the tolerances so the seam closes up. Seal the openings, and there's no path for grit to sneak under the panel. Same device, 2 targeted repairs, each aimed at one specific failure. The redesigned Fold went on sale about 5 months later, in September 2019. This time it held. But fixing it doesn't answer the argument a lot of people still make. Weren't these just careless reviewers who broke an expensive gadget? So were the reviewers just clumsy? Let's take that seriously, because the answer only makes sense if you split the two failures apart. Failure 1, the peeled film, you could argue that's partly on the reviewers. They removed a layer they were meant to keep. But every one of them made the same mistake, on a $2,000 phone with no warning telling them not to. When your most careful expert users all fall into the same trap, the trap is the problem, not the users. Samsung agreed. That's exactly why they added a warning and redesigned the film so it can't be peeled. Failure 2 is the one that ends the argument. The dust and hinge failures happened with zero user intervention. Nobody peeled a thing. The screens died from a particle slipping through a gap the design left open. You cannot pin that on a reviewer. There is no careful way to hold a phone that seals its own hinge. And that's the real lesson here. A foldable isn't one part you get right. It's a system. The flexible display, the hinge that seals it, and the instructions that tell you how to use it all have to hold at once. Get the screen perfect and leave a gap at the hinge, and the whole thing fails. One weak link defeats a $1,980 device. So if the failures were that fundamental, why do folding phones even exist today? Here's the payoff, and it's why the whole category survived. That embarrassing pre-launch recall was the best thing that could have happened to folding phones. Think about the alternatives. If Samsung had shipped on April 26th, those two flaws don't stay quiet. They multiply across millions of buyers. Screens dying by the truckload right after the phone that caught fire. That's not a rough launch. That's the end of Samsung's phone reputation and the end of foldables as a serious idea. Instead, the failures showed up in the hands of a few dozen reviewers. A few dozen, break time equals 0, 6 is /painful public cheap. Samsung ate the embarrassment, fixed the film and the hinge, and shipped a version that actually held. And because it held, the next fold worked, and the one after that, and folding phones turned into a real, durable product line you can buy today. The delay didn't kill the fold. Catching the flaw in reviewers' hands instead of customers' hands is the only reason the fold, and the whole folding phone category, is still here. So here's the whole thing in one line. An exposed gap at the hinge, plus a structural layer people peeled off like a sticker, equals a $1,980 phone dead in 2 days. The takeaway you can actually use. When a brand new kind of device fails, look for the trade-off at its root. Soft enough to fold meant soft enough to break, and every failure traced back to that one choice. Find the root trade-off and the flaws stop looking random. That's why the first fold broke and why it lived. If you want the next teardown, the folding hinge itself is a tiny mechanical marvel with hundreds of moving parts. We open that box next. Subscribe and we'll show you exactly how it survives 250,000 folds.